Good morning, everybody. Just like that, it is Monday, the day of the week I wish was not on the calendar, but then I guess I'd be bitching about Tuesday, right? And it's President's Day. Who has to work today? I'm not a banker, but because the banks are closed, I don't have to work today. So, score for me, because I couldn't imagine working at a bank. I think it'd be a pain in the ass. I don't know what's really going on. What do people do on President's Day? I mean, I guess if you're a president, you get to eat free, but I think you get to do that anyway, right? Good morning, Kiki. How are you? Alibi has to work today. Stop and please give it a like. Thank you, Janice. Ducking Fire has to work every holiday. Is it a holiday? Or I don't know. I don't know. It's not like you go out and there's no parades. It's not like there's mattress sales. You can get a mattress at a decent price today. I think that's about the only thing. Like they're chopping down that cherry tree of prices I know at Mattress Firm. Other than that, I have nothing for you. I know some schools are out. That's pretty much it. It's a government holiday because they need all the time off. They need all the time off they can get, right? Gotta rest. Gotta rest with all that work they do. You got that right. So today, in the saga of Lindsay Clancy, today, February 20th, 2023, this case is insane. You would think that it would, I guess I don't want to say slam dunk, but it's pretty obvious. It's pretty obvious what happened. She had some sort of, just going to say misfire. Something was going on in her brain. There's no getting around it. She murdered her 3 babies. She attempted to move herself to the next planet with a knife. I have a feeling that she wanted it done faster because she knew she knew how much time she had. She had been putting that together, according to the state. She had been putting that together. So when the knife wasn't working fast enough, or it could have just hurt too bad, because I know some people say, well, she's a nurse. She knew how, how deep to cut. She threw herself out the window. She survived. Their infant son, he hung in there a few days. This case is something else because it's so divided. It is so divided. I say quite a bit, be careful where you're stepping out there. We're cool with each other. There's other areas people aren't so cool. There are some women that if you throw any shade Lindsay's way, they'll want to pull your woman card. They'll be like, check your uterus at the door. How dare you talk about Lindsay? If you're like, you know what, obviously something was going on. I think the question is, this is my take, should she be institutionalized for life or do you put her in jail? That's going to be between the state, what they want to do. The defense is going to fight it. The judge and the jury. At first I said, no way this is going to go to the jury. No way. They're not going to roll the dice at that. They're not going to play with $2-3 million to have a trial for everyone to sympathize with her. They're just not going to. Then you think about Patrick, her husband. We have a lot of people that come on panel here. This last show, we had a lady come up and she was very emotional. She was very upset. This hit her on a personal level. And every one of us have our worst day, our worst memory, the worst thing that's ever happened to us. We survived it though, right? So we have our worst day, whether it be the death of our parents, death of a spouse, death of a child. God, I hope not. I hope none of it, but we know how it goes. Loss of a job, house burnt down, a car wreck that we're never going to recover from. We have our worst day. Imagine Patrick's worst day. Nobody can compete with that. Tiffany had a terrible, terrible car wreck. She will never fully recover from it. Okay? If I try to compare my car wreck to Tiffany's, guess what? Tiffany wins, hands down. Imagine being at the water cooler with Patrick telling him your problems. Just imagine. Man, you wouldn't believe what happened to me this weekend. I found out my wife was cheating on me. Came home to an empty house. She took the kids. Some guy named Roscoe. He's got tattoos all over him. They're not even spelled right. Patrick's like, yeah. I went to get takeout and I came home and my wife turned out she had killed my kids and threw herself out the window. Yeah, Patrick's going to win. Patrick's going to win forever. Patrick is going to win forever. So we have tons of letters pouring in to the judge, sympathy for Lindsay. Then you have on the outside, which they are looking at all this social media, I'm telling you, people that are saying, I don't care. She planned it. She planned it. She planned it. My question is, why did she plan it? Is it this cocktail of medications that she's been on? She wasn't on all 13 at once. Is that it? Was she truly postpartum and was misdiagnosed? Or here's the big question. Does any of that matter? Do we even want to make sense of this? Or just say, hey, lady, you're like everybody else. You're a murderer. You're going to jail. You're going to jail. Avery Shannon, thank you for the super sticker. I don't know if I should say this or not. Avery she had an accident not too long ago, and I've been really worried about her. She's in here today. Let's lift Avery up. Thank you, Avery. She said, no matter what, someone's story is always worse. It is. It is. And doesn't it really just burn your ass when someone is telling a horrible story and someone has to stop them to tell them their story and minimize theirs? Or someone has a terrible story and you've got someone that makes it sound like they grew up in the damn Depression. That's like, oh, that's not anything. Let me tell you what happened to me back in 1968. And it's like, what? Always got to be a one-upper. Well, Patrick wins forever. Okay? Patrick wins forever. He's got it. He's got it. Yeah, but some people, and I don't think some of these people don't know that they're doing it. There was one chick, she used to come around here all the time. I tell you what, if she called, don't answer the phone. You couldn't get her off the damn phone. I'm telling you. You couldn't get her off the phone. And the minute that you were trying to cut the conversation off, she'd be like, oh, well, hang on, one more thing, she'd say. And you're like, oh God, this better just be one. And I would even say, okay, real quick, what is it? Did I tell you about when my family moved from Texas to Georgia? I go, when you were 6? The story when you were 6 years old? Yes, I've heard that story. And I got to the point I just had to hang up. I don't want to hear it. Terrible. We can only do so much, but Patrick wins. Patrick wins. Patrick is no one's ever going to be able to compete with Patrick's story. Never. It's crazy. Now, a lot of people think that it's unfair that they think that the state of Massachusetts, because the after press conference was only them talking. Let me tell you, that's how it's going to go. And let me tell you why. Because the defense already got ahead of the ball. That's the reason all of our first shows were about postpartum depression. They set the train rolling down the track. That's how everything was looking, right? Then here comes the state can't do that. They can only do their stuff in court. So they get in front of the judge, they air it, and they say there was no diagnosis of postpartum anything. There was no PPD, there was no PPS, and she planned all of this. We all sat here together trying to get our jaws up off the floor. We were like, do what? She planned it? Are you kidding me? I think we were all pretty pissed that day, except for Jinbug, because she had been holding her thoughts to herself. So the defense got ahead of the ball. Then we heard the state. So this is how it's going to go. When it goes to trial, the state will open with their case. The state will close with their case. It really just comes down to, who do you believe? Was she mismanaged on her medication? I have a feeling they're going to find some expert. We love our experts around here, don't we? They're going to find an expert to say she was misdiagnosed. It's going to be really interesting to watch. Not as interesting as Izzy, who just sent a super sticker. Thank you very much. Ilyanka said it wasn't even for depression, it was for anxiety. Exactly. That's what they said. And she had medical attention. When people say, see, we had all the rumors, right? We had a lot of rumors leading up to the arraignment. We had one that said she tried to get into an inpatient, but her insurance denied her. That was a lie, because she had inpatient care. When she left, they said she was not a danger to herself or others. She wasn't a danger to herself. Let's go to the comments from the last show. Some I cannot read on here. Some I cannot read. I thought I let the cat out of the bag when I let everyone know I don't have a comment moderator. So if you leave things out there, everyone can read it until I get a hold of it. And you know what? I don't delete it. I don't. Some people will go back and delete their stuff. It happens a lot of times right after these shows. It's pretty funny. I at least give me a chance to reply. But anyway, that's how it goes. We know how people are. All right, here we go. Indigo Moon says, couldn't the premeditation be part of psychosis? I don't know, because I'm not a doctor. Her attorney, I will say, is no joke. This dude is no joke. So pretty much anything that they have laid out, he's going to have someone to rebut it. He's going to have someone to rebut it. So when they say she was on Apple Maps, she knew exactly how long it would take to go to CVS and get the Miralax. She knew exactly how long it would take to pick up the Mediterranean bowl. She knew exactly how long it would take to get back home, and she knew how long she had to do what she was going to do. Indigo Moon is saying premeditation is part of a psychotic episode. I did not know that. I did not know that. Diamond Eyes says she was prescribed approximately 12 different medications and was having difficulty having S thoughts. I have to say S, you guys don't. It's an unfair world up here for Brooks. The YouTube terms of service are only for me. You guys can do whatever you want. Boo for me. Okay, she was prescribed approximately 12 different medications and was having difficulty having S thoughts, etc. It's her doctor's fault for giving her 12 medications that are for the same thing. Usually up to 3, but 12 is going to screw up anyone's thinking. Now, to be fair, Oh, I gotta put the link up. What an idiot. Listen to me clicking away. It's a Monday. It's a Monday for sure. Okay, let's look at this really quick. Well, there's nothing quick about it. All right, this is what her defense attorney, this was printed, I believe, in the Boston Globe. Her defense attorney told the newspaper that between last October and January, Lindsay was prescribed 13 different psychiatric medications. I don't know why people keep saying 12. He said 13. I mean, what's one? What's an extra one, right? 13 different psychiatric medications, including Ambien, Klonopin, Valium, Prozac, Lambeticil, I don't know what that is, Ativan, Remeron, Seroquel, Zoloft, Trazodone, hydroxyzine, buspirone, and another one I can't pronounce. All right. That's a war chest. That's a war chest for sure. Now, a lot of people are fired up about this. They're like, look, there is no way that that could not have given her homicidal thoughts, that it could not have given her S thoughts. The week before this happened, they were at the doctor. Patrick said, she's a zombie. You've got to do something. Supposedly that day, they switched it up and they said, back off of this one. It was also said, now it's not in this article, this is just through the internet, and you know I believe everything I read on the internet, that one medication in particular that she was taking, you can't just stop taking. I don't know which one it is in the war chest. She was given Librium to get off of this medication. If not, she would have terrible side effects. Terrible, not side effects, withdrawals. Withdrawals. Most people are saying it's the doctor's fault. It's the doctor's fault. The doctor should be in jail with her. She only had one doctor. She wasn't going to every urgent care in Boston. Halo Art said all of that is not just for anxiety. I didn't think so either, Halo Art. I don't think so either. I didn't think so either. Hang on, I got a couple people backstage. Let me do this next comment and I'm going to start bringing you guys up. I want to hear from all of you. Here for it said, Chris Watts was an abused husband and going through a midlife crisis, Brooks. He had lost a substantial amount of weight and was on burn patches. Please go and look what they do to people. No, I will not. He essentially does the same thing, but his mental state was never spoken about. Now, I don't do Watts Island around here. I just don't, for a lot of reasons. I kind of get the comparison. I kind of do. People were telling me, you're giving Lindsay a free pass, but you want Leilani to get the electric chair. I never say anything about the electric chair for Leilani. I want far worse for her. Some people are like, Brooks, look at Susan Smith. But you're giving Lindsay a free. I never said I'm giving Lindsay a free pass. Let's go through these people real quick. Chris Watts was having an affair. Chris Watts he annihilated his family. He would rather annihilate his family and start new with his new side piece than deal with a divorce. He's come on now. Come on. We know what happened there. Come on. He wanted his mistress. That's what he wanted. Crazy. Absolutely crazy. Susan Smith. She wanted to be with the dude she was working with. He told her in open court, he said, listen, it wasn't kids. It wasn't your kids I had a problem with. I didn't want you. That was the most emotion you saw out of Susan Smith in that trial, is when the boyfriend said, I didn't want you. It wasn't about your kids. I didn't want you. Leilani, I don't have all day. Leilani beat her son with an object, told the babysitter don't show up today, put him in a dumpster, made sure that waste management picked up that little boy, went back home and said Bubba had him. Then said, I don't know, the front door was open. Well, the door to the pool was open. Then went as far as say Danny did it. No, no. These people do not compare to Lindsay. And Lindsay's not getting a free pass from me. She's not. I promise she's not. Lindsay did, though, try to check out early, if you know what I mean. She didn't want to be on planet Earth any longer. She threw herself out the window. So that to me is that's a big difference. So what do we do with Lindsay if we're on the jury? What do we do with Lindsay if we're on the jury? Do we put Lindsay in an institution for the rest of Lindsay's life like Andrea Yates? Or does Lindsay go to jail like Susan, Leilani, and Chris Watts? What do you think? You be the judge. Bernsey, thank you for the super sticker. Bernsey gets to go first. Hello, Avery. How are you doing, honey buns?
Hey, how are you?
Trying to figure out why Herefort's calling me a man hater because I won't compare Chris Watts to Lindsay. But you go first, hon. You're the guest.
Oh, good grief. Yeah, so I have all my degrees in psychology. I'm just not a practicing psychologist because I'm home with my child, but I know that psychosis, it happens rapidly. There's a very brief window between, just psychopathy and psychosis. And her doing the Googling and searching out the times and stuff, that could have been the beginning. However, I would think there would have been some signs that her husband would have noticed because it's almost impossible to hide it when it's coming on, but it does come on fast. And I do see now I know the husband said she wasn't taking all of those medications. She was only taking like 4 of them. But I do see a couple that have interactions, and I do see a couple that you can't abruptly stop. That uh, the Zoloft.
Let me stop right there because I want to ask you if this is even a plausible rumor. Because see, they talk about 13 medications, but one is left out. When I heard
Mhm,
she was given, I think it's called Librium, because they
mhm.
said what week before when they were at the doctor, and he said she's a zombie, and they said we got to wean her off, but in order to wean her off of this one, we have to give her Librium. By the way, this is not a medical show. Don't try any of this at home. So is Librium something you would give somebody to get them off of a medication?
Yeah, it's also a mood stabilizer too. So it I don't usually hear of Librium being used for that to wean people off, but I mean I guess it could be, but usually it's phenobarbital is the type of thing that they would use. But I don't know. But I know I heard or read her husband said that she was actually only taking 4 medications. The rest were just like some that she had been prescribed before but was no longer taking. But I see a couple like antidepressants and antipsychotics where if she were to just abruptly stop those, which her husband said that she didn't, that she took her medication every single day, but if she were to abruptly stop those, she could have a full-blown psychotic episode.
I,
But
I go ahead.
my opinion as a whole, just with all the symptoms that she had been having and seeking treatment and taking medication, I just would wonder if whoever it was that was treating her wouldn't have some kind of, responsibility in all of this, because they would know that she wasn't okay unless she was just a really good liar. when
Mhm.
she was seeing, her physicians, but I would think that they would know, but yeah, I wanted to, because you guys were asking if, the premeditation could fall into the psychosis, and if it was a very short time period between when she was doing her premeditative acts and actually, committed the acts that she did in the end, yeah, it definitely could be. It could have been the beginning of psychosis, definitely. And I think that her not having any emotion, they said that she can't cry. She doesn't have any emotion, like even now in the hospital. I think that, the chemicals or not the chemicals, yeah, the chemicals in her brain, I think they haven't even reconnected.
And she had such a normal day. I think that's one thing people have a hard time getting around. And Chris
Uh-huh.
comment
Yeah.
on the screen, she said, in her situation, she had this arsenal of drugs she could use to end her life. Why kill the kids and herself? We can't make sense of it. The only thing I can think of, like with the knife, it wasn't working fast enough and it hurt. The
Yeah.
pill, I think she was afraid he was going to get home and they would be able to pump her stomach and save her. I think she truly wanted to be gone.
Oh, yeah, yeah, and the fact that, she tried to end her own life as well, I think that's really telling. It's not that she just, wanted to just get rid of the children. I think that she, truly believed that she was taking her and the kids to a better place. I think that, and that's usually what happens. They're usually having a normal day, and then boom, psychosis hits, and everybody's kind of left with a WTF moment. But that's how fast it comes on.
And we've had other cases. I can't remember the woman's name. It was out of California where women have and again, don't try this at home. I know everybody's normal here. That they have done this. They've killed their kids and then they have made it look like they were trying to commit suicide. And when it comes out, they're like, look, they knew that wouldn't kill him. Diane Downs shooting herself in the arm, um,
Right. Yeah.
herself in the foot. They're like, look, you don't need a foot to live, lady.
Yeah. Yeah. And see, and like Diane Downs, she had motive. She wanted a man who didn't want children. But this lady, Lindsay, there isn't any type of motive other than, that postpartum depression she'd been having. And I've heard some other creators say, well, postpartum only lasts 3 months or a year. No, it can be lifelong. Like it can actually be chronic. And they feel such a guilt for not being able to connect or love the child the way that they're supposed to. They feel such a guilt. And then if she was having, like hallucinations and voices talking to her, telling her, that you need to do this, you need to do that. Well, that was her body, her brain's way of protecting herself from the guilt that she was feeling about not being able to connect or love her children. It's your brain's mechanism, and these voices come in and they start talking to you. I don't know if I'm explaining this the exact way that people would understand,
No,
but
my everybody's picking it up. Trust me. Glenjamin said the doctors should face some accountability.
yes, I believe so.
And it's from what I'm understanding, it's one doctor. I tell you what, I hope this doctor faces some accountability. Let me tell you why. My doctor used to be real handy with the script pad. Let me tell you what, since all this shit's been going on, I have to beg for a Z pack. Okay?
Oh yeah,
And it's
yeah,
doctors like this that make me have to beg for a Z pack.
yeah. I know that it was 12 years ago, after the birth of my twins, which one passed, and the doctor gave me a prescription for Klonopin, and you know they don't sit down and tell you anymore. Which I had no idea, then really what it was, and but they don't tell you, if you take this for a prolonged time, you're gonna become, reliant on it, they don't really, and honestly, who sits down and reads the paperwork that comes with your prescriptions? Because it tells you every side effect all the way down to diarrhea.
You can't
And
read it. It looks like a credit card fine print from 1986. You can't read that shit.
yeah, and I remember a few months later, I had went into the doctor and I said, "I'm shaky," and I held my hand out to him and my hand was shaking. And I said, "Look, I'm just shaky." And I thought something was going on, like with my heart or something. And he said, "Have you taken your Klonopin today?" And I said, "No, they make me sleepy." And he says, "Oh, you need to go home, take your Klonopin. In fact, here, I'm gonna up your dosage." But I mean, it was bad, and that's a lot of times what these doctors do. They're rushed with patients, and they're not taking they only get like allotted time with their patients now because of insurance reasons, and they rush with their patients, and they don't give them the time that they need. Have you noticed when you go to a doctor now, not too often do they just a regular doctor's visit, they don't listen to your heart, they don't listen to your lungs, they don't check your ears. A lot of times they don't even touch you. They're just sitting across from you. What are your symptoms? Okay, here's the prescriptions.
Mine does, but I mean, I've had the same doctor for 30 years.
Yeah.
You can't teach an old dog new tricks. Now, Janice has a question for you, except for the script pad thing. You ask him for an antibiotic. Now, I was raised on antibiotics. I mean, I was born in 75. If I had seasonal allergies, the doctor's like, "Oh, 10 days antibiotics."
Mhm. Uh
Janice wants to know, she said, "Please ask Avery if it's a fair statement. Overprescribed and undersupervised medical malpractice."
well, yeah, with postpartum depression, 100%, because that is one of that is one of the postpartum depression is one of the ones that you have to keep. This is the type of situation where you would want your patient to come back in probably weekly to see how they're doing. Just to
Uh-oh, Avery cut out.
that they will completely flip. And so definitely, and I have a feeling that this doctor was relying on her husband reporting to him or reporting to the doctor's office. They often do that just because they don't have the time. And I do believe he'll end up with a lawsuit. He or she, the doctor will.
They're going to be forced to do something like that or they don't have a defense.
Right,
They
right.
can't just they can't just stand there and wave their hands and say, "Oh, but she was given too much medicine." They're gonna have to
Mhm.
they're going to have to file a medical malpractice. They're going to have to get other experts in, or it's just bitching, basically.
Yeah,
That's all it is.
right. I know of a local man who was on Zoloft, and his doctor had explained to him how he wanted him to wean off of it. The man didn't understand. He went home. He never took another pill. 3 days later, he shot five sheriff's deputies. He was in a complete psychotic state. And so a lot of people they don't, the doctor might think they understand what they're being told, but it doesn't exactly work out that way.
Well, and I mean, some people are telling me I'm not being fair because I'm only talking about her. And well, I'm talking about her because it's her case. And they're like, "But you're not
Yeah.
talking about how it affects men." Well, here's the thing, it doesn't affect men because men don't have babies. Now, then, the
Right.
state said she was not postpartum depression. She was never diagnosed with that. She was never diagnosed with that. She was being treated for generalized anxiety disorder. So
Those medications do not go with anxiety disorder.
I went through some things, and I'm being 100% fair here. Here's a gentleman right here who I don't think should be on death row. Texas death row inmate who cut his own eyes out seeks clemency. That is screaming mental illness,
Oh,
okay?
yeah.
Plagued by
Wow.
mental illness, Andre Thomas started hearing voices when he was 9 years old and first attempted suicide when he was 10. Thomas's psychosis filled with religious delusions and hallucinations became worse as he grew older. His family, beset by a long history of mental illness, addiction, and poverty, was unable to help. His lawyers say in March of 2004, when he was 21, his illness erupted in a burst of horrific violence in his hometown of Sherman, Texas. He fatally stabbed his estranged wife, their 4-year-old son, 13-month-old daughter. I'm not going to say what all he did, but it is horrific. He later told police God had instructed him to commit the killings. Okay, I'm not going to tell you how he took his eyes out. Matter of fact, I'm going to take that down. I'm going to get into a lot of trouble. It is a horrific story. I do not believe he should be on death row. I think he should be institutionalized.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. That's definitely mental illness. And
Yeah. Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
I think in the end, ultimately, that's what's going to happen with Lindsay. I think she will end up in an institution for the rest of her life. And it saddens me because, it's not something, you can't help. You can't help depression. You can't help postpartum depression. You can't help. There's some minor mental illnesses, anxiety and things that you can help and work on, but it's not her fault. And that's what really gets me. And her prescriptions alone tell a story.
They do. And I think the argument is she criminally responsible or not? The guy that I just put on the screen, I'm going to say he's not, he's got other stuff going on. He
Right.
should have been, hopefully the governor does something about this because damn, oh, God. So,
Well, did you read where her husband said, he made that big long post. I think it was on his Facebook maybe. And he was explaining things, and he even asked for forgiveness for her. And he specifically said in there, her mental state was declining rapidly, but their marriage was strengthening. So he knew, that she was still declining.
was that on the GoFundMe?
No, it was either on, I believe it was on his Facebook page. It may have been on the GoFundMe as well. It was like 5 pages long. He
God,
gave
yeah.
it,
I didn't think I'd ever get to the bottom of it. I thought, who the hell helped him with this? Because
yeah,
trauma he's got going on, how can you put pen to paper?
right, right, right. But
Well,
did you catch that part where he said she was declining, but their marriage was getting stronger? So it was his way of saying, yes, she was deteriorating, but I was supportive. We were leaning to each other, but he admits right there that she was in a declining state. He
mm-mm.
should he should never have left her. I shouldn't say that he should never have left her alone, but I do feel that. I really do feel. I know he probably thought it's just a quick run. She seems fine right now. But in the end, she shouldn't have been left alone.
I don't think so either, and I feel bad even saying that out loud, but it's
I do
obvious.
too.
It's
Yeah.
he shouldn't have left her alone. Let's go through the timeline real quick, okay?
Okay. Okay.
So now, mind you, this is a week before this, a week before. I don't know if they mean a week as in 5 days, Friday to Tuesday. I don't know. 7 perfect days. I don't know. But a week before, the doctor had been told by Patrick, she's a zombie. We got to do something. And so they changed up her medications. One she had to wean off of. So the morning of, Lindsay takes her 5-year-old daughter, Cora, to a doctor's appointment. When they return home, they play outside in the snow with 3-year-old Dawson, and Clancy sends pictures of the children to her mother and husband. Okay. Now, what really bothers me about this, even in the world we live in, we're always taking pictures, sending them, posting them, or something like that. This is a little different to me. I think about other women, and before they kill their children, they have that final picture.
Right.
Barb Murray, thank you for the super sticker, says, "Plead guilty, give the children the dignity."
Mm,
At 4:02 PM, Clancy searches for kids' Miralax on her cell phone, then take out 3V. Afterwards, she uses Apple Maps to determine the time it would take to drive from the family's home in Duxbury to 3V, a restaurant in Plymouth. Now, the map that I saw on Google Maps was 16 minutes there and 16 minutes back. That's what I saw. 4:47 PM. Clancy calls a CVS in Kingston to ask if they have children's Miralax. Now, mind you, this is children's. A lot of people thought it was for her, and they said with all those medications, she would be constipated, but this is for one of the children. It's very odd to me that she is sending him after children's Miralax, knowing that she's getting ready to kill the children.
that's right. And it very well could be that they needed medication and he asked her, maybe he was thinking, well, how long am I going to be gone? And he may have said to her, Lindsay, um, can you look up how far this is? Because maybe he was trying to calculate how long he would be gone. We don't know.
Yeah, we don't. Well, he's going to tell him.
Yeah,
He'll definitely tell the state. I don't think he realizes how much he has helped the state with them charging her.
I
It,
know. I know. Ugh,
and it looks like he went from forgive her, we had a great marriage, to he's pulled that support back after that arraignment. But anyway, 4:53 p.m. Lindsay texts her husband, who was working from his home office in the basement. Any chance you want to do takeout from 3V? I didn't cook anything. It's been a long day. 5:10 p.m., Lindsay Clancy calls 3V to order takeout. She sends her husband to pick up the medicine from CVS and food from 3V shortly after. Okay, so they have the same map as me. 5:32 p.m., Patrick arrives at CVS in Kingston. 5:33, Patrick calls his wife. She doesn't answer, but calls him back 1 minute later and confirms which medication he should buy. He later tells investigators that his wife seemed like she was in the middle of something when they spoke. Well, she was. She was strangling their children.
right.
5:54 p.m., Patrick arrives at 3V, pays for the order, and leaves. 6:09, Patrick arrives home to silence and calls his wife. She doesn't answer. He goes upstairs to their bedroom and finds the door locked. He's able to open the door and notices blood on the floor and an open window. He runs outside and sees his wife on the ground injured. He calls 911. During the call, he can be heard asking his wife, "Where are the kids?" He later tells police that she replied, "In the basement." Okay, so people say, well, you want the book thrown at Leilani. Lindsay is not trying to cover up what she did. Leilani went to extreme measures to cover up what she did. She said in the basement. Lindsay told him in the basement. 6:11 p.m., Duxbury Police dispatch radios all cruisers to respond to 47 Summer Street for an attempted S involving a woman who reportedly cut herself and jumped out a window. Second story window. Officers arrive and find Lindsay breathing and semi-conscious. Her cut's no longer bleeding. Patrick is with her. As first responders assess his wife, Patrick enters the home to check on his children. Soon, why did that thing jump on me? That was crazy. Soon, officers hear loud screaming coming from the house. Like I said, nobody's ever going to compete with Patrick's story. When officers arrive in the basement, Patrick reportedly yells, "She killed the kids." Cora and 8-month-old Callan are found on the floor in a den area of the basement. Dawson is alone on the floor of his father's office. Some people say because Dawson and Patrick were so close. I don't know. Patrick later tells investigators that all 3 children had workout bands tied around their necks when he found them. Lindsay is initially taken to South Shore Hospital, with several broken bones in her back and rib cage, injuries that have left her paralyzed below the waist. She's lucky. She's lucky because if I was Patrick, she'd be living with injuries neck down. Injuries that have left her paralyzed below the waist, her attorney later tells the court. Her children are sent to Beth Israel Deaconess Hospital in Plymouth. The youngest, Callan, is later med-flighted to Boston's Children's Hospital. 7:28 p.m., Cora and Dawson are pronounced dead. 7:29, Massachusetts State Police trooper arrives at Beth Israel where he speaks with several doctors who treated the Clancy children. A doctor who tended to Callan before he was med-flighted describes the infant's condition as critical. Callan passes away 3 days later. It is horrible.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
it really is horrifying. And it's real, like with Patrick, it's a bad time for the state or anybody really to be talking to him because they have to understand he's got to go through all the stages of grief. And I think he's in the angry stage right now. And, so he might change his tune again
He might
before,
he might go back
before,
and forth. You're exactly right, because he
right.
was all about our marriage. Please forgive her. I have forgiven her. Then he
Hmm.
goes to he hears the something they must have told him before because he was not at the arraignment. Then it was reported, I believe, by the Boston Globe, that
Hmm.
he used a psychiatrist's phone to try to call him twice and he wouldn't answer, so she called her mother. He was
Hmm.
not in court for the arraignment, which you would think he would be there to publicly support her. He was not there. Then there was a report, I also want to say by the Boston Globe, saying that the GoFundMe will not be used for her legal fees. It does say legal help, but not her. Legal help could be their divorce. Okay.
True.
But they
Yeah.
said it will not be used for her legal fees. I don't know. And I mean, I think that was a big punch in the gut when the state is laying this out for him saying, "Buddy, she sent you on a fool's errand."
Yeah, and I'm sure he's going through all the stages of grief. His emotions are all over the place. I really think that somebody needs to be keeping an eye on him. They're keeping a watch. They have Lindsay on a suicide watch. Man, I'm not supposed to say that word. They have her on a watch. I think somebody needs to be watching him.
I do too. I'd have him on a homicide watch.
Yeah.
I would be like, "No, somebody keep an eye on him." They're talking
Hmm.
about first responders and what they're having to do, to get some mental clarity after this. I couldn't imagine anyone involved, but they seem to forget about Patrick.
Right, right. Yeah, he definitely needs to be watched because he very well could hurt himself or hurt somebody else. I mean, he's lost his whole world.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely.
I
Alright,
call I always call mental illness the silent devil. I often hear people, refer to cancer as the silent devil. I think of mental illness the same way because sometimes, that's how it just seems to slip up like that. And then before you know it, you got a bad situation and you're like, how did we get here? We were going to the doctor, we were getting medication, we were doing this, we were doing that. How did we get here? And it just slips up so fast. It's the devil itself, I swear it.
well, particularly when they, they have insurance, they have good insurance. From what I'm understanding, what we were told before is rumors, and,
Mhm.
they thought they were doing everything the right way, and
Right.
so here in this arraignment, she didn't have postpartum depression. She was postpartum, that's for sure, but she
Hmm.
was being treated for generalized anxiety disorder. So anybody who knows a little more than me, who just knows what a Z-Pak is, goes, "Whoa, not that medication."
Yeah. Yeah, I seen a few on that list that would not lead to a generalized anxiety disorder. I see a few that are for something more going on. But
Mm,
the state has their job to do. Prosecution has their job to do. So I don't know. It's going to be a tough one.
and we've seen these things before. We know what the state's gonna do. They're gonna charge as high as they possibly can. The stakes can't be any higher, and
Right.
to have to meet in the middle, figure out what can everyone live with, meaning Patrick, meaning his parents, because they've lost their 3 grandbabies,
Hmm.
all in all, what can they live with? And if he's got a mother, Lindsay's former mother-in-law going, "No, she's going to jail." I mean, I don't know how much, I'm being
Right. Yeah.
uh, it's got to be something they can all live with. But then also, you owe it to the citizens of the state to know that they take this stuff seriously. There's not going to be a winner here. So, what are we going to do? Are we going to institutionalize her? And when she gets to where she's mentally clear and understands what happens, then
Hmm.
put her in jail or institution for life? I don't know.
Yeah. My prediction is that she will be found guilty, but it'll be, guilty by insanity. And I think she'll end up in an institution. I would be very, very surprised if she ends up in prison.
Me too. At this point, but I don't know what else they have. I couldn't believe all the stuff they hit us with at the arraignment.
I know. I listened to that arraignment and I was like, wow, this is two completely different pictures being painted for us.
It was like
Completely the opposite.
it was like we were watching the opening arguments of a trial. I'm like,
Right.
normally arraignments they go in and they drag, they drag them in there. Of course, she was in the hospital, so you see them and you're like, oh, they're wearing orange or they got stripes on, and they
Hmm.
read the charges, and then they say, okay, we have a status conference in a month. Do you wish to plead today? No, I'll take a status conference, and that's about the end of it. This
Right.
was, we're ready to go today. I couldn't believe it.
I think her husband and family, their testimony is going to play a lot into it because they're going to be able to say, how she interacted with the kids, how she was. They're going to be able to tell the story of, what kind of mother she was striving to be or trying to be. And I think that will play a lot into it.
Jay is local. Jay said, I think she will wind up in jail. That's my opinion.
Oh wow. Yeah. I mean, and that very well could be.
Jay also said, I think the kids were too much for her to handle. What really got people was not just the normalcy of the day, but when she came to, when she asked if she needed a lawyer, as opposed to, what am I doing here? Where's my husband? Where are my kids? What happened? She asked about her own backside. I think that bothers a lot of people. I think that bothers a lot.
Yeah. And if she did intend to die and she didn't, and she already knows, what she did to the kids, then she's probably laying there thinking, dang, I lived. I need, I need representation now. But I bet you that she's trying to figure a way to still finish out what she attempted with herself.
Mhm. Let's go through this because she has a lot of support pouring out. I
Yeah.
thought, and then I'm going to bring Rowena up. I thought after that arraignment, a lot of that would go away, and a lot did because people were saying, "Whoa, I thought she was postpartum." A woman named Tigress was in here, and she kept saying over and over, "Brooks, I'm telling you, it's only the media saying she has postpartum depression. She probably doesn't." And I was like, "Well, of course she does, Tigress." And here comes the arraignment, and they're like, that's not what she was diagnosed with. And it's not like she wasn't going to the doctor frequently. She had been, she was even, I think that's what she was trying to get diagnosed with in a way. But let's look at this, and I'm going to bring Rowena up.
Okay, I'm gonna hop down and just listen. Thank you for having me up.
Oh, anytime. I didn't mean for you to hop down, but sure, anytime. Anytime you see the link, come on up. Don't be a stranger.
Okay, thanks.
Where this woman has incredible support, as you saw. Letters from Foxborough that were signed by about 15 women. Letters from her family, friends, letters from people she's known since the 6th grade that have stayed in touch with her. One thing that's a theme that is readily apparent is that Lindsay loved her children.
An outpouring of support for accused killer Lindsay Clancy, as her defense team says they've received dozens of letters sympathizing with postpartum depression.
She had worked for several years in a local hospital, and a number of co-workers have written letters in support of the defendant and her character. She's described in these letters as an exemplary worker, colleague, and friend.
At Clancy's first court appearance last week, defense attorney Kevin Reddington said many of the letters were written by people who knew Clancy personally, some who worked with her at Massachusetts General Hospital in the labor and delivery department. Reddington says they describe her as a good mother.
Okay, do you guys think that all of these letters and the public support for Lindsay are going to matter? I know where Slim is going. Slim said it. Slim said, did she land on the snowman or a snow pile that was made while she was building snowmen with her kids? Slim. That's blowing my mind, Slim. Reese says, nope. Christina says, nope. Mayor says, nope, not gonna matter. Don't waste your stationery.
Friend and coworker arguing her medication caused her to spiral.
Your Honor saw, I think there's probably close to 50 letters that have been submitted to you, and I know you read every one of them. The incredible outpouring of support by other nurses that work at Mass General Hospital. The fact that these women have a vigil, that they write the letters to this court imploring you to understand that you sentence, as far as bail issue, the woman before you, who was a beautiful person, who was thoroughly destroyed by these medications.
Clancy now faces multiple charges, including murder and assault and battery with a dangerous weapon. Prosecutors say she strangled her 3 children, 5-year-old Cora, 3-year-old Dawson, and 8-month-old Callan with exercise bands. After that, Clancy attempted suicide by jumping out of a 2nd-story window. Her husband, Patrick Clancy, was out running errands at the time of the incident. He arrived home to find Lindsay on the ground outside their house.
I think it'd be important for Law and Crime, and I do like their channel, don't get me wrong, for them to make sure people understand he wasn't out running errands. She sent him on those errands. She sent him on those errands. That's a difference.
House in Duxbury, Massachusetts.
During the 911 call, Patrick can be heard asking the defendant, "Where are the kids?" He later told police that she replied, "In the basement." So immediately after this happened, she knew what she had done and she knew where the kids were. When EMS arrived, he asked them to stay with her so he could go find his kids. The 911 call kept going. Patrick can be heard on the 911 call entering the home and heading to the basement. At one point, he calls out, "Guys." He can then be heard screaming in agony and shock as he found his children. His screams seem to get louder and more agonized as the time passes.
Days later.
Okay, that right there. I have to take a deep breath every time I hear that. It never gets any better. Imagine. They can hear him screaming for his kids, screaming. He tells them when they get down there, she killed him. Let's see what Rowena's thinking. Hey, Rowena.
Hi, good morning, everybody. Sorry, I'm crying.
Oh, honey, there's nothing easy about this.
It's not, and oh my goodness, and I forgot her name. I'm sorry. What a great insight to all this. I mean, that's a great insight. I learned so much. Yeah, Avery. Oh my goodness, thank you, Avery. I wish you would have stayed up.
Oh,
I go back.
well, then we're in good hands. Rowena's like, I wish you would have stayed up. Don't bother Rowena today.
No, I go back and forth. Okay. I would have, heck, when we did the show, I defended her to the ends, because I believe that she was diagnosed with postpartum depression and went into psychosis. She did this, and then when the arraignment dropped, I dropped, and and that's okay. If anybody hates me, it's okay. It's fine. Everybody has their own opinion. My opinion, there's a lot of mentally ill people in prison, and that's what she is. Is she postpartum depression? No, I don't believe so. Did she have a mental illness? Of course. No sane person does this. So, certain things just stand out that came in the arraignment. Like you said, number one, I'm going to wake up from surgery. My first words are, do I need an attorney? Really? Okay. Number two, it came out in the arraignment.
I think asking for the attorney bothered people real bad.
It slapped me in the face. And
When we
I would have been one of those 50 nurses that wrote in. I'd like to know how many, after the arraignment, that's prior to the arraignment, how many of those 50 nurses stand behind what they wrote. Another thing that gets me is, of course, the planning, the length. She goes to, okay, and psychotic events. Yes, they a blink of an eye, something triggers them. Blink. She wrote that her other two children, that she resented them because she couldn't treat her third baby like her first baby. It was stated that she had anxiety returning to work. She had been off work for 8 months. Okay. I had been off work for 8 weeks. Everybody's different. But you're not off work. I don't care what you do. And you're a little bit anxious. Sometimes you're a lot anxious.
Hell, I'm anxious on Monday morning after just having a weekend.
Thank you. It's like, what email am I going to get that's going to change something? In a 12-hour period from shift to shift, we got new IV pumps, and I don't want to kill my patients. So what is this? And not all IV pumps are the same. He called her. She called him back.
While in the commission of murder.
Exactly. She called him back and told him what to get. And I could be, I wish Avery would say that. Avery, come on back up. But I've only taken care of a very, very few psychotic patients, but I don't see them calling. I don't see them calling back. I just don't. The way the children were killed. This took time, and this took time, and she had to look in the face of those babies, and it took time. She put two. As you went downstairs in the basement, she put two in there, and then she put the baby in her husband's office to the right. Why were they separated? Did she resent the children that much that she did not want them around him? All these things just, and I do believe she's mentally ill. I completely 100% believe she's mentally ill.
Of course she is. And the thing is, the jails are full of people that had bad childhoods and are mentally ill. So where do we divide the mentally ill? Where?
I want justice for those three babies.
Me too.
That's it. I want justice for those three babies, period. And if she has to go in prison, there's people in wheelchairs in prison. There's mentally ill people walking around the streets. Hey, I'll say it. I'm on an antidepressant. That I have a mental illness, depression. I'm walking around. So I can't, and I'm not saying that a mental hospital is cushy and you get flowers and somebody fills your ice pitcher, and it's not like that. It's not a good thing either. But I think this sets a precedent for future cases, and I don't. This scares me. And when the trial comes, people just put it in your mind. An expert can be an expert, and you can buy an expert. That's not difficult. And that expert, you're going to pay the one that tells you what you want to hear. And
Well,
that's
what I like is in these trials now is they're taking these experts and they're saying, but when you testified in this trial, you
hmm
had a different opinion.
right. They're
I'm
going
glad
back and
I'm glad they're doing that. So
yeah.
let's pretend Jennifer Coffindaffer is the expert. They're going to say, okay, so today, Jennifer Coffindaffer, you're saying she was misdiagnosed. But when you were an expert witness in this other trial, you said no, you stood by the doctor's opinion. So you agree. So it depends on who's paying you, right?
hmm And
Jennifer Coffindaffer, yeah.
I do believe that her doctor does have some responsibility. My God, yes. And I'm gonna tell. And ooh, I'm probably sharing way too much, but I don't care. I was
Well, I
given
care if you
Clonopin
hang up.
years. I was given Clonopin years ago for restless leg syndrome. I was given Clonopin. Um, uh, Now, uh, you can't. I'm waiting for melatonin to be taken off the shelf. I bought magnesium spray to help me sleep off Amazon. You can't. I mean, and that goes into a whole other subject. But sometimes people that need medication can't get medication because the doctors that have abused the medication and the script pad have set that precedent. So now all the doctors are scared, and it's state by state. I can tell you where I came from. It wasn't a big deal. Here, please. It, it's it's different. So I do think that her doctor holds some responsibility. Do I think that the doctor and the meds caused this? No, I don't. Was she mismanaged? No, I don't. They're going to go back in her history and her life back to that sixth grader, um, and look and see if she had other episodes of mental illness. And one thing, people put nurses too high on a pedestal. We are human beings. We just went to school for a different depression. I mean, a different depression, different profession. So, nurses can have mental illness. Nurses can do very bad things. Nurses can kill people. Nurses can have Munchausen's. Nurses can have a lot of things. So, nurses can have mental illness. But I want justice for these three kids, period. I'm sorry. The phone, asking for the attorney, the phone, her resenting her other two children, that she wasn't able to spend the time that she wanted with her third child,
Mhm.
being anxious about returning to work and wanting to have more children.
Wanting to have more children. Now let's talk about the phone call for a second. Snazzy on the screen, I put the comment up. Now think about how chilling this is. Patrick speaking with the prosecutors. I'm assuming that's who he told this to. When he called and she didn't answer and she called back about the Miralax. And some people say, well, why didn't he just ask the pharmacist? Listen, if my husband's at the store and he has a question, he calls me. He doesn't, I don't care. He's not going to ask the butcher if I send him for steak. He's going to call me. So I get that part. But listen to how chilling this is when Patrick says she sounded busy and distracted. He
Mm,
gets home and he realizes what busy and distracted really meant.
hmm hmm And that's where I have the problem. She was doing the act, but had the mental forethought to call him back. And my husband, no, he ain't going to stand in a line to ask a pharmacist a question.
Mm-mm.
He's just not. I ain't gonna do that. I mean, I'll get on whatever and try to find, whatever. He'd call me. I mean, I've never been to a pharmacy where there's not 2 or 3 people checking out, picking up, getting vaccines, whatever, you know. So those are the things that just chilled me to the bone.
Now
You
let's
know,
think about this. She's a young woman. She's already said she wants to have more children. Just because she's in a wheelchair doesn't mean she can't have more children. What if she's institutionalized for 5 years? Okay. Weirder things have happened. She gets out, she meets another dude and has more kids. Could you
yep,
imagine?
yep. Yeah, people think that being paralyzed and in a wheelchair is just the end of life. It's not. There's very high function. There was an attorney, and I can't remember his name. He was paraplegic. He was in an accident, and he was in law school. And he was he was on an inversion bed, to where it's like the weight of your organs is too much on your lungs, so they flip you upside down. His fraternity brothers came and brought law books, and he read them. They put him on the floor,
Mhm.
okay, and he became this he was on, I forget which trial.
Well, basically, what it comes down to, I mean, could you imagine if we don't know what that jury is going to do. We don't know what that judge is going to do. If it turns out that she is institutionalized, rehabbed, I guess, returns to society and has more children, I'm not cool with that. That's why this is what I'm leaning towards. Either institutionalized for life or get her well, institutionalized, and then jail time. But yeah, because someone's legs don't work doesn't mean other things don't work. Let's look at this real quick. Rowena cut out. She'll have to reconnect.
Patrick Clancy posted a statement on his family's GoFundMe page saying, quote, "I want to ask all of you that you find it deep within yourselves to forgive Lindsay as I have. The real Lindsay was generously loving and caring towards everyone, me, our kids, family, friends, and her patients." Clancy's defense team says the theme in many of her support letters is that she was a loving mother who should not be charged with her children's deaths.
She had pictures of her pregnant standing next to Patrick, hanging on the wall. I was in the house. The house is absolutely loaded with indicia of love for those kids. Photographs on the wall, little drawings, all sorts of games, toys, playpens, bassinets in the living room, in the dining room, the kitchen loaded with toys. Virtually the entire house, including their master bedroom.
Clancy appeared virtually from a hospital bed at her arraignment last week. Her attorneys say she is now paralyzed from the waist down as a result of her suicide attempt.
We all know that this woman is, as counsel concedes apparently, a danger to herself. I question whether she would ever make it to a trial. She's suicidal. She's extremely emotional.
While prosecutors argued Clancy should be jailed, Judge John Canavan ruled Clancy will remain in the hospital under supervision.
The court is going to make the following order on bail. The defendant shall remain in her current hospital until medically cleared to be moved to a new facility. As a condition of bail, the defendant is ordered not to leave the hospital until discharged to a new facility. The defendant shall provide notice to probation 48 hours in advance of any transfer to a different facility. Based on the letter of the doctor, it would appear likely that she would be sent from the hospital setting to a 24/7 rehabilitation facility.
Clancy's attorneys say some of the letters written to support her are from strangers, even some as far away as the United Kingdom.
Okay, and just me, I don't think that's really going to matter. I don't really think that all these strangers' letters, even her coworkers, I don't think it's going to matter that much. I really don't. I think it's really going to weigh on the support that Patrick has for her. And from what I can see, that's waned quite a bit. What do you think, Rowena?
Oh, I totally I agree. I mean, I think no, you can't take her right now to a jail. No, no, you can't. You can't do that.
Oh,
But
I don't mean about the decision to keep her in the
oh,
hospital,
okay.
take her to a rehab. I don't think you heard what I said. I
I'm
don't
sorry.
I don't think all of these letters that are coming from strangers as far as the United Kingdom are going to make a decision for a judge going forward. I think it's
No,
really going to come down to the support that Patrick gives her. And from what I've seen, well, from not that I know Patrick, we don't talk, it's waned quite a bit. I think his opinion is I don't think that the coworkers and internet strangers are going to have much of a bearing on the court. What do you think?
I don't think so either. I think these are these are people that are coworkers. Look at Facebook. I mean, you put out there what you want. Patrick is the one that lived it. He was in the house. He knew her better than her parents.
Mhm.
So his support or lack of is going to be huge, huge in this. And I know that I think we were all kind of slapped in the face. I can't imagine what Patrick when he found out all this. And I don't think it was at the arraignment. I think I completely agree with you. I think he was told prior. I think the
Oh,
state told
yeah.
him.
I think they told him before, and I
Yeah,
think that's the reason he didn't take her phone calls. I
yeah,
think that's the reason that the GoFundMe got edited. I
yeah.
think that's the reason he was not at the arraignment. Her parents were there, but he was not.
Mhm.
And
And
he wasn't at her bedside. I mean, unless the media lies, they know how to bend the truth, but we don't he's not campaigning for her. Let me put it that way.
right, I hope that the blame of him does not. I know some people do, and everybody has their opinion, but I really hope it doesn't grow, and I hope that grace is shown to him. And if he does, there's 6 stages of grief and years. It can take years to work through them, and you can waffle back and forth. The last one is acceptance, and that's the hardest one.
Mhm.
So, the anger, the sorrow, he's reliving that. And I really hope he has somebody with him 24/7
Uh,
because I'm more worried about him killing himself than I am her.
then we go down to this. I'm going to ask everybody in chat. Of course, I'm going to ask you, Rowena, can she get a fair trial? There are a lot of angry, angry people out there. They're very angry with her. And then it's like hot and cold. You've got people that are very angry with her. Then you've got people that are like, no, she was overdiagnosed. She was misdiagnosed. She was over medicated, and she needs to be sympathized with. I'm in the middle. I really am. I can see medication mismanagement, and I can also see that
I, I,
she wasn't 100%, but not being 100%, and they're not going to put the doctor in jail. Someone has to pay for what happened to these 3 babies.
hmm
And it can
yeah,
only be her because Patrick's going to be in hell till the day he dies. That's the thing. He doesn't have medication. He doesn't get to go to an institution. He's got to pick up. He's got to get over this. He's got to go to work. This money that he has in the GoFundMe isn't going to last him a lifetime. He's going to have to go back to work and try to maneuver through life with this horrible, horrible memory.
hmm and and I'm in the middle too. I really am, and in one way, I can look at her and I can the fact that she was that desperate that she jumped out of a window. I'm like, oh my God. But then I sit there and I think she called him back, telling him what kind of child laxative to get while she was killing these 3 babies.
Mhm.
And the 3 babies kind of tipped the scale with me. And I do have I do have compassion for. You have to know somebody, love somebody to hate somebody, but I do say that it would be really hard for me to take care of her in that hospital. And I pray for those nurses that are taking care of her today, and the nurses that took care of those children. That's one thing, in all these cases, um, and uh, even if they're, brought to the ER and everything, medical, her healthcare providers, we we do suffer too. We the first responders, um, but down to the unit secretary, putting in orders and hearing it all. Uh, it, it's just unimaginable. I
I've
pray for
always
them
wondered
too.
I've always wondered about that, as a human being, what you would do, and I don't know if you've ever been in this situation, and I don't wanna get into it, but if you're a, paramedic, you're a surgeon, you're a nurse, and you're called to, let's say, a shopping center, and you're told that you have a gunshot victim, and you find out that that victim has been shot by the police because that person just took down 12 people.
Hmm.
Um, would you just run that ambulance into a telephone pole and be like, "You know what? I can take a broke leg, but I'm gonna make sure this ambulance doesn't get there anytime fast." As the surgeon, think about, surgeons who have had to work on people who've tried to assassinate presidents, and you have to put that to the side knowing that you're saving the life of someone who has committed the unthinkable, like they've had to do with Lindsay.
Yeah, I thank God I've never been in that position, to where it's, the the mass shooter that's shot in the arm and you have to do surgery. Because right now, I mean, that's why I say I couldn't take care of Lindsay, because I'd probably go in there and shake the shit out of her, to be honest. I mean, but then I would feel bad because you are mentally ill, but no, you weren't psychotic and you should have taken the pills, sister. You should have taken the pills, got in the car, left the kids at home, drove 5 minutes away. Nobody would have known where you are, check in a hotel and go to sleep, but leave the kids alone. I can't, and when first responders pull up at a scene and everything, and you've got they're having to take medical leave, they're outside throwing up.
Mhm.
I think everybody has a picture of it in their mind, but and you know um until you have until you have given a baby that has passed a bath, and you've held a mom and a dad and grandparents in your arms, it messes you up. My husband, I would have like 3 days, and what I did, it could be the happiest, most miraculous place, or it could be the most tragedy. And you do take it home. You try not to, but it does mess you up.
Well,
It
I can
does.
imagine. How could it not? You're human too. You're not, I mean,
Right.
you might
Right.
be Wonder Woman to me, but we know you're not Wonder Woman. Nana
But and
has
I
Nana
want to shake her and go, Lindsay, why? You
Mhm.
know, I mean, I want to shake her and hug her, and then I want to slap the shit out of her 3 times for each one of those kids. So that's where I have the mainly my thing is I want justice for those children. I want justice for Patrick, and really, I'm going to stand behind Patrick. I really am. I'm going to
100%.
stand behind him. If he says I want her to go to an institution, yes, make it for life. But I'm going to stand behind what he wants, because basically we're going to move on to the next case. This is going to go away, but he's the one that has to live with this forever. Whether he goes to a prison to visit her, whether he goes to a mental hospital to visit her, or whether he chooses not to visit her at all, I will stand behind him. And that's the thing. He knows
Well,
her
and that's
better.
what it really comes down to is he going to plead with the court to give her mercy? That's what I'm waiting to see. And it's going to be a while, and they might tell him, "Look, don't make any rash decisions. Don't you're going to go back and forth between anger and tears and trying to find normalcy. He's still in the house. He has a lot to deal with. So if he goes and his victim statement is after they find her guilty, let's say that the jury comes back and they're like guilty on all counts, and he gives his victim statement before sentencing and says, please give her mercy. Please give her mercy. I'll stand behind it too. Now, if he says his victim statement is looking straight at her going, how could you? How could you? I'm standing behind him. That's exactly right.
Yeah, our feelings really don't matter in this. It's his, and I just hope that he really. My heart, it breaks. It just, and I'm glad they did redact him in the 911. And that's another thing, listen to the 911. Okay, we need an ambulance. No, we need another ambulance. No, we need another ambulance.
Mm-hmm.
And the noise. I mean, if anybody's ever been in a car wreck or whatever, just the sounds alone. So,
Well, it's horrible. And speaking of the 911 call, okay, so I have the dispatch. I have the audio, the dispatch. And in the description I have, this is the dispatch side. In it, I talk first and I say, Patrick is not on here. And I have all these people leaving me these comments going, this is just clickbait. It's not the 911 call. I don't know how many languages I need to speak to say, this is not the 911 call. This is the dispatch side only. Crazy, crazy. Telling you, it's something all the time.
yeah, and I'm sorry, I just call everything the 911. I'm terrible, but
I do too. But you know what? I'll tell you
I
what,
know.
some people, if you're not, I don't even want to get into it. Mary P said, and she's right, when it really comes down to it, what the public thinks doesn't matter. So these letters that are pouring in, it's all well and good. What's important about the letters pouring in is it gives them a tool, I guess, to see which way a jury might vote. So that's good. Mary's right though. Our feelings don't matter, and in all reality, his feelings don't really matter. His feelings don't really matter at the end of the day. They talk about victims' families, victims' families, victims' families, work with the victims' families. It's what the law is going to do. It's what that judge and what that jury come down with. Now, it does weigh in a lot. Victim statements do. But that doesn't mean because he says, listen, let's forgive her. Let's forgive her and move on. That doesn't mean that the judge is going to say, you're right. Let's forget this never happened and all go home. Let's get her back on some more pills in the institution and let's see what happens. Nah, it doesn't work that way.
Yeah, and that's a good reminder. I had to be reminded of that, of what the law is. Was this premeditated? Yes, we know she's mentally ill, but was she in a psychotic event? And I think it's kind of telling that she uses the attorney phone to call her husband, and the
No,
first time he hears psychosis,
the psychiatrist.
I'm sorry, the psychiatrist phone, and uses the term psychosis for the first time. And I think those journals and everything that she's writing are going to come. That was a smidge of what we got. So I'd like to see what I just don't believe that she was in a psychotic. And that's just my opinion. I'm nobody, but that's just everybody's got one, and I just her calling him back just slapped me in the face.
Well, what's the difference? And this is just for argument's sake. This is just for conversation. That's what we do here. What's the difference between her psychotic break and, let's say, someone else's psychotic break?
Right. Just because she's a nurse and that
I
comes
don't
into
think
play.
anyone cares that she's a nurse. I think the
Right.
thing about her being a nurse is people say, well, hell, she knew not to mix those medications.
Right.
She knew how deep to cut. That's all they're saying. They're not putting her on any pedestal because she's a nurse. I
But some people are.
I
Some
think
people are like,
no,
oh, she's a nurse.
I think most people, what really gets them is the three initials, PPD or PPS. That seems to be the difference. So what's the difference between her psychotic break and someone else's? I think that's what really gets people going.
Hmm. And this is going to set a precedent. It really is. This is going to, and that's what kind of worries me with what's going to happen. You know, is this going to be a, you know, kind of like what you said? And I mean, people with mental illness, sometimes you don't think clearly. And,
Nobody does. Nobody does.
you know, did she not want to go back to work? I know that sounds crazy, but
Girl, that's what so many people are saying. They're like, are you kidding me? She had extended her leave and extended her leave and
mm-hmm,
her leave. She was at the end. They were like, she's playing people because she didn't want to go back to work. You're not
mm-hmm.
the only one saying it.
I've seen it. I've seen, I know somebody that did, I mean, no, they didn't kill their children or anything, but they went to extremes. They had surgery. You can find somebody to do surgery. I hate to tell you that, but you can. And because they didn't want to go back to work. I'm telling you, I don't know. I just want justice for those kids, period. That's it, period, done. I want justice. I think she premeditated it. My opinion, what I want, which don't matter, I want her to go to prison. Being
Oh,
paralyzed doesn't have crap to do with it. I don't want her in a mental hospital. I don't want her to have any chance of getting out. And I know this is heartless and ugly, and I get mad, and then I cry, and then I get mad, and then I feel bad. And I think, God, I'm so heartless. But, you know, hi, I'm kind of glad she's paralyzed. She has a daily damn reminder of what she did. Sorry. And that's just me. I'm just, you know,
and
and then I want to,
then I look at this that Jakey said. She thought clearly enough to send him out for the meals to give her the allotted time to follow through with her plan. That's what the state's saying. That's what the
mhm,
Commonwealth is saying. She not only did she just look up, this is the difference. She didn't just look up the CVS to see if they had the Miralax. She didn't just look up the 3V and order food. She looked to map out how long it would take. What would it matter how long it's going to take? What would it matter?
yeah,
She didn't have anywhere to be. It's not like they had plans at 8 o'clock that night. They were just going to eat and go to bed. That, I think that gets a lot of people. She needed to know how much time. And also, it was odd to send him that far away to get food. They have food all around them. Lone Wolf, thank you so much. Lone Wolf said, why is everyone not talking about homicidal S? You don't give a person meds that have side effects of S/homicide. 2019 federal law states she should have been placed inpatient for 14 weeks. It was a violation by the doctor. That combination of medication not only could give you S ideations, but H. He's right.
yeah,
I think that they're going to wind up putting out a malpractice lawsuit because it's their only defense.
yeah, it is.
Absolutely. All right, I'm going to start winding this down. But before I do, let's look at one more clip. Thank you very much, Rowena. We love having
Thanks.
you up.
I'm going to step down. I
Rowena
love all y'all.
Rowena speaks it. Oh, Rowena just jumped down. Let's give a big round of applause for our friend Rowena. We love when she comes up. Now, this I think is really interesting. I want to see what you guys think. Now, it's actually two different cases because two very major cases are going on in Boston right now. Can she get a fair trial with all these letters and everything pouring in? What do you think? Two very different cases. We have Brian Walsh, who it is believed that he killed his wife. And we have Lindsay, who it's believed she killed her 3 children. Well, we know she did.
Attention right now, and they will likely head to trial. Brian Walsh is accused of killing his wife in Cohasset, and Lindsay Clancy is charged with murder in the deaths of her 3 children in Duxbury. A big challenge facing the defense and prosecution will be jury selection.
Yeah, the goal will be to find fair-minded people to serve. New at 6, Boston 25 News reporter Bob Ward talks to a pair of prominent defense attorneys who say our legal system is built to handle cases like these.
There seems to be no shortage of opinion about the cases of Brian Walsh and Lindsay Clancy. Interest in the 2 Massachusetts cases is extremely high. Brian Walsh is the Cohasset man charged with murdering and dismembering his wife, Anna. Lindsay Clancy is the Duxbury mother accused of strangling her 3 young children before trying to kill herself. Both cases are still in the district court level, but it's never too early to think about how a fair and impartial jury can be seated.
I would be skeptical if somebody said they had never heard of one of these cases, a year or 2 from now.
Defense attorney Peter Ellikin tells me jury selection will be critical in these cases, as the court will be looking for jurors who can keep their minds open.
It's not going to be easy. It is going to be a difficult task to try to find fair, unbiased jurors who are open to having to listening to the evidence first. Ultimately, though, I do have faith in the court system.
10 years ago, Massachusetts jurors judged the high-profile cases of mobster Whitey Bulger, marathon bomber Johar Tsarnaev, and former New England Patriot Aaron Hernandez. Boston attorney Phil Tracy believes the same will happen for Walsh and Clancy.
They can get a fair trial, and they won't get a change of venue.
Tracy believes Walsh and Clancy's cases will stay in Norfolk and Plymouth counties, where the cases are based, because, thanks to modern media, moving the cases won't make a difference.
Springfield, Pittsfield, they read all about this. They know all about this. There's so much information out there that there wasn't there in the 50s or 60s, where you could take a case and move it, and the people might not know much about it.
It's likely it'll be much more than a year before either one of these cases goes to trial. And while it's impossible to predict the legal road ahead, our experts believe it's unlikely that either one of these cases will see a change of venue. I'm Bob Ward for your local station, Boston 25 News.
I'm glad he said that. This is 2023. You can move it to the moon. People have a way of getting information they didn't before. And don't forget, there are some people that don't follow cases. There's a lot of them, believe it or not. Not everybody's like us. There are some people that could be living right there in Boston and have seen it on the news and turned it to another channel saying, I don't want to see that. And they get called for, these people blow my mind, but they're not like us. Jen 405, thank you very much, said Patrick asked Lindsay when he finds her in the yard, what did you do? And she only mentions that she tried to herself. Nothing about what she did to their children. Wow. Wow. You're right. You're right. Then you wake up in the hospital. This is according to the state. Instead of, what am I doing here? What happened? Where's Patrick? Where are my kids? What's going on? She said, do I need an attorney? Some people say, well, it's probably because there's an armed guard there and she was handcuffed. Well, yeah, that would do too. But as a mama, as a wife, where's my husband? I don't know. I don't know. I think it's horrible. I think it's absolutely horrible. Well, guys, thank you for a wonderful, wonderful show. Let's have a round of applause for Avery. Let's have a round of applause for Rowena. All of your amazing comments, because I know this is a really hard show to do. Really hard show to do. I know some other people have been having a real hard problem talking about this to a point where they just won't. They just won't. It's it's so divided. It's, how dare you want this woman in jail? She's suffering from postpartum depression, but isn't that mental illness? The jails are full of mental illness. Well, no, this is different. So it's different. Mental illness after having a baby, it's okay to kill. Well, no, it's not okay to kill. But then you have the other side saying, no, it doesn't matter what the reason is. What matters is three babies were taken out by the person that they trusted most in the world. It's horrible. Now, I'm going to be back here in about an hour and a half, but not on this channel. It's going to be on the other channel. I'll put the link in here real quick. I'm talking about the situation in Ohio that I am beyond obsessed with right now. I think it's absolutely crazy what's going on in Ohio. I'm keeping it separate from this channel because, people come to this channel because they want to, they're used to hearing me bashing on Candace and Billy and stuff. They're not into all this other with what's going on in Ohio. So I'm keeping it separate. So if you would like to come in, I would love for you to, and talk about what's going on in East Palestine, Ohio. Doors open. Doors open. Here, I'll put the link up real quick for that other channel. I say I will, if I can find it. And just like we do here, we're just going to have a very open and honest discussion about the insanity that's going on in East Ohio. It's horrible. It's horrible. This situation with what Patrick is dealing with is hell on earth. I cannot believe it. Like I said, nobody's ever going to one-up him when they want to tell him their sob story. That is for sure. All right, guys, I'll see you on the other channel in a couple of hours. If I miss you over there, if I miss you in Discord, if I miss you in any of the Facebook groups, then I will see you back here on this channel at 9 a.m. Central Time tomorrow. You guys are the absolute best. Your comments were blowing me away, as they always do. Have a great one.